Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about literally how governments use illegal immigration to control you. And I'm going to guide you step by step of how this works so you can understand the full scope of the trouble that so many people in so many countries are facing right now. The good thing is that you could apply everything in this video to any country in the world which is dealing with illegal immigration. We could be talking about the United States, we could be talking about Canada, we could be talking about the United Kingdom and many others. But since in this channel we are proud to be inclusive, I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to leave anybody out. Everyone is welcome. So what I'm going to do instead is switch from this universe to a parallel universe, a different version of planet Earth. Let's call it Earth 39A97. And in this version of Earth, we don't have the United States. We don't have Canada or the United Kingdom or any other country that you know. It's totally different. But we have one country, the United States of Britannia. In this fictional parallel universe that has nothing to do with ours or our governments, the United States of Britannia has been prosperous for some time. Britannians are polite, educated people. And this is a high-trust society. It has been thriving, and since it's a thriving economy and people are polite and high-trust, then people from all over the world want to come to the United States of Britannia because it's a great country and you can actually realize your dreams here. Now, for a very long time, Britannians have had very strict immigration laws in place because anybody who wants to come, who we will call abroadians, because they come from abroad, abroadians who want to come to Britannia, they need to comply with rather complex and demanding processes, not just to enter the country, but also if you want to live as a legal resident and also if you want to become a citizen of the United States of Britannia. You can do it, provided you spend some time in the country and you don't have a criminal record, you learn the language and pay your taxes. And the good thing is that thanks to that legal process, almost all abroadians have inserted themselves in Britannia society, and many times not just in a passive way, but they are rather active members of society. Some of them have become doctors and some engineers. Some have become very successful entertainers. And even in some cases, some of them have held public office. And this is despite that some abroadians have different religions than Britannians. In fact, abroadians are allowed to have their own places of worship. No big deal. Everyone is respectful to one another. And as usual, there is some crime here and there, especially in the bigger cities, but statistically, it has never really been tied to anything that has to do with immigration. It's just regular crime that you're going to have in big cities, normal stuff. But one night, at a secret meeting at the top of this huge skyscraper, some powerful people are having this chat about how are they infatuated with power. They realize that they like power a bit too much and they want to remain in power. It's not just about the money, it's about control. It's a different feeling. They enjoy it and they want to perpetuate that feeling. And they have tried to do all sorts of stuff through decades with mixed results. But one of these guys comes up with an idea, tells the other guys in that exclusive group what he's thinking. Some of them say that, well, it's rather crazy. Others say that, well, that sounds brilliant. Let's see what happens. And nobody outside that room knows that this meeting ever took place. So private and secret it was. But a couple years later, everyone in the United States of Britannia began to notice something strange. That rather large groups of abroadians begin to arrive by, let's say, unconventional means. Some of them arrive by boats, some arrive by land. Somehow they are not arriving through the usual means. This is not that rare because there's always been irregular immigration, only that for some strange reason, there are so many of them right now, and they are seeking for help. What kind of help, you might ask? Well, in their own countries, there are all sorts of conflicts, war, famine, diseases, everything, and they need help. They need a hand. All Britannidans and legally resident Abroadians say that, well, okay, we can give you a hand. Absolutely, please come. We can help. We have enough resources for you. And this is nice. And even the law is adapted to be able to give these people who did not arrive by the usual means have a different, easier process so they can insert into society. So this repeats the following day, and the following day, and the following day for months and then years. But one thing that I failed to mention is that these Abroadians arriving in droves, they don't have anything. They don't have housing, they don't have money. Then Britannia's government grants them housing, grants them money every month, grants them clothes, a mobile phone, and basically pays for their expenses. Because, they come from this destroyed country. We have to be humane about this. Okay. At some point, some Britannians start to have other thoughts. The economy begins to go not so well for many reasons. Maybe it's a natural downturn of events, but somehow the taxes are higher. And Britannians begin to worry more and more about how can they pay their bills. And meanwhile, more and more Abroadians arrive illegally to the country. And Britannians notice that a lot of these Abroadians don't want to really work because as long as they are unemployed, they still receive some kind of welfare from the Britannian government. And that welfare, of course, comes from their taxes. And also, and this is really concerning, crime is rising. And rising in a way that is not expected, but a sharp rise. And this is the interesting part. Certain crimes that used to be extremely rare, and in some cases Britannians had never seen before, start to happen on a regular basis. And the crime in question, well, there's something you have to know about this parallel universe. One thing that is forbidden to carry in Britannia are felt tip markers. You can use felt tip markers at home if you're careful. You could carry one with you on the street, but you would need a license because they are strictly regulated. You simply cannot carry felt tip markers on the street with you. If the police catches you with a felt tip marker in your pocket or in your purse, or if you dare to try to board a plane with a felt tip marker in your luggage, you will be detained. You will have to pay a fine and even spend a couple nights in jail. Because in this universe, felt tip markers are very dangerous things. In fact, the moment that you mark someone with a felt tip marker, that person essentially ceases to exist. So, felt tip markers in this universe, in this earth, are literally lethal weapons. What's more strange is that many of these illegal Abroadians somehow carry not just felt tip markers on the street like it's no big deal, but carry the biggest felt tip markers that anybody has ever dared to have, even at home. Why would you need a felt tip marker of that size, let alone carry it with you? And this is where the craziest things begins to show up on social media. Abroadians fighting with felt tip markers on the street, trying to mark each other, taunting with their felt tip markers here and there, and people saying, how is this possible? What is happening? And immediately the media pops up and says, hey, wait a minute. If you complain, you are inhuman. How are you going to complain about this? Don't you see that they have not integrated to our society yet? Don't you understand that they could have still post-traumatic stress disorder, and we all process that post-traumatic stress in many ways? Can't you see that that might be part of their culture? That they just go around with felt tip markers back home and nobody is hurt there? Try to understand. Try to be a bit more tolerant. Try to embrace our Abroadian friends. There are all the other Abroadians that have made this country great. You have to change your mind. more Abrodians might be the solution to the economic downturn that we are going through. And people would say, all right, well, all this tolerance stuff might make sense, but that doesn't convince me yet. Then one day, one very tragic day, one illegal Abrodian, he goes on a rampage with his red felt tip marker. He goes to a shopping mall and, running among the people, he takes the cap off his felt tip marker and begins to chase people with the exposed tip. Some people escape. Some people manage to avoid being marked with the felt tip marker. But 2 adults and 2 children are marked by the Abrodian. And we already know what happens in this universe when you're marked with a felt tip marker. This event becomes a national tragedy. And the problem is that this has been happening for some time. It becomes this huge uproar from everyone. Many people realize that, no, this should have been controlled from the start. They knew that too many illegal Abrodians arriving for years were going to cause trouble. They begin to connect the dots and realize that the rise in crime was not a coincidence, but so many illegal Abrodians who are not behaving in a civil way. And people start to question why the police now says that they had this particular guy in their sights. They had arrested him 2 or 3 times, but a judge had released him because of humane reasons. And you know what's funnier? You know who are the ones who oppose illegal Abrodians the most? The ones who oppose them the most are other Abrodians who came legally to this country. Not to mention the Abrodians who have become citizens of Britannia. And naturalized Abrodians reject the illegal ones because naturalized Abrodians had to go through all this process to reside in the country, adapt to the culture, we well behaved, and now they notice that some original residents of Britannia are putting all Abrodians in the same group. Abrodians are evil. All of them. Abrodians are the source of all the crime. We need to get rid of all the Abrodians. So the legal Abrodians are really upset with the illegal Abrodians who are still leeching the resources of the government. Or more specifically, the people's taxes. And because this has been happening for years, then there is this big riot and the streets are destroyed and the police has to bring, I don't know, special suits and, well, everything is a mess. So the prime leader, in this universe it's called the prime leader of Britannia speaks up. This is unacceptable. And when he says that this is unacceptable, he's not talking about the felt tip marker attack. No, he's talking about the riot that was protesting the fact that an Abrodian committed this horrific felt tip marker crime. And people are saying, what are you talking about? The real crime is the felt tip thing. The riots is the reaction to that. But no. The prime leader says that because of the destruction caused by these riots, you're going to take control of some things. And this is the big reveal. All that has been happening so far, the rise in illegal crossings, the change in policies, the heavy taxing, all this is the product of that secret meeting a few years ago. This was planned all along. And the plan was letting in as many illegal Abrodians as possible for many reasons. First, because it was obvious that it was going to have a rise in crime. It was obvious that it was going to create division and tension between illegal Abrodians and legal residents. And there's all sorts of factions right here. You have the original Britannians, you have naturalized Abrodians, original Britannians that don't like any Abrodian, you have legal Abrodians that despise their illegal counterparts. You have all these factions and they are all fighting each other instead of focusing on the problem, the government's policies. Not to mention that one of those policies is a 2-tier police. A police that acts one way with Abrodians and a very different way with Britannians. And the other reason these illegal Abrodians were part of the plan is that they are counted as population in the councils of the country. And according to the law, the more population a council has, the more seats it's going to have in the Britannian Congress. So if you want to remain in power, all you have to do is distribute these illegal Abroadians in such a way that gives you more power in Congress. Brilliant. And if you, as a citizen of Britannia, dare to complain, you are shamed. You are bullied. You are inhuman to these people with these struggles, with mental illnesses, with PTSD. You have to embrace them, maybe welcome them into your house. By the way, why do you have a house with 4 or 5 rooms if your kids already left the nest? You're a 70-year-old couple with a house with 4 or 5 rooms. Why would you need such a big house? Maybe that house that you have would be better employed to house our illegal Abroadian friends who need a home. And by the way, stop calling them illegal. You cannot say that they are illegal. They are undocumented Abroadians. If you say illegal, you might go to jail because it means that you have covert anger, and we cannot afford covert anger crimes. Yeah, because we just made that up, covert anger crimes. If we notice that you have covert anger, then we will put you in jail. But at the same time, we know that these riots, like the one that happened, are organized and amplified through social media. So we need to control those means of communication. We have to put a ban on what can be shared on social media and what cannot. And if the social media channel doesn't comply, we will threaten with banning them in our country. Now, the owners of social media channels, they don't want to lose the country's business. So they signed this secret agreement. Okay, we will limit certain topics and amplify others as long as you let us operate in Britannia. And the government and the social media owners make this secret agreement. There might be one social media channel still independent, maybe bought by a crazy billionaire who wants free speech at all costs, but who knows how long it would last. So all this so far only increases the division and tension. And that increase in division and tension only allows for the government to impose more and more draconian laws. It's a vicious cycle, and with each turn, the ones really in power become more powerful. Not to mention that the additional crime is really useful because you don't have to control people with a curfew. People just become scared to go out at certain hours. But in which other ways the ones in power can exploit these scenarios? Well, the government could keep the illegals dependent and use them as cheap labor force for state-run projects while you tax the citizens more to support the system. And by keeping citizens economically disadvantaged and illegals dependent, the government can prevent any one group from amassing enough resources to challenge their authority. The idea is to infuse society with a high degree of anxiety. Anxiety because of crime, anxiety because of not knowing how you are going to pay the bills, anxiety because you don't know how you will provide for your children. All that stress puts people in survival mode, and people in survival mode cannot think straight or think farther in the future than next week, let alone really organize to notice it's the government policies. Also, people in survival mode are more prone to violent outbursts, which keeps the vicious circle running. And all this time, the United States of Britannia government has made sure to push propaganda to reinforce the concept that any sense of patriotism is toxic, that you need to embrace multiculturalism at all costs, and if you don't do it, you're inhuman. And this, my friends, is how the despicable government of the United States of Britannia devised a way to control the population thanks to a mysterious influx of many illegal Abroadians. I'm just relieved that this happens in a fictional parallel universe and doesn't happen in ours. Any similarity with current events are pure coincidence. But I would love to know what you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Body Language Guy. Much love and bliss.